Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa man ittaba'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin, amma ba'd. To proceed, to continue our explanation of Al-Qissatu, the story, An-Nasiku wal-Lasusu, the Hermit and the Thieves. And the point that we concluded upon in our previous lesson was al-jumlatu, the sentence Qala an-nasik hadhihi anzah wa laysat kalban. So we begin with qala, and qala, as we all know by now bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, means he said. Qala, he said, al-fi'l al-madi, a past tense verb. So we begin with al-jumlatu al-fi'liyatu, or a verbal sentence, and as we know that al-jumlatu al-fi'liyya tabda'u bil-fi'li, it begins with a verb, as in this instance qala. Then, as we always ask ourselves whenever we have a verb, what follows is al-fa'ilu, the doer. The second part of al-jumlatu al-fi'liyya, and the second condition for the correctness of al-jumlatu al-fi'liyya is the presence of al-fa'ilu, the doer. So in this instance, who is al-fa'ilu? Well, what we do is we look for an ismun which is marfu'un, a noun which is in the state of being marfu'un. How do we know it's marfu'un? The presence of the dhamma. So I placed a dhamma on a nasiku. And of course somebody could question, well, how do you know that's the fa'il? Because you're the one who placed a dhamma on it, so you've made it in effect al-fa'ilu. Well, the answer would be, from the siyaq of al-jumla, from the context of the jumla, there could only be one fa'il. There could only be one doer, and that must be therefore a nasiku, because there are no other individuals who could have said this statement in this sentence. So we have qala an-nasiku. Qala an-nasiku, the hermit said. What did he say? He said hadhihi anza, and as we know, anza, a goat, is an ismun. It's not preceded by alif lam, therefore it is going to end with a tanween, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be marfu'un. So we're going to say hadhihi anzatun, and hadhihi anzatun, this is al-jumlatul ismiyya. So this is a nominal sentence. Why? Because it comprises of two parts, al-mubtada'u and al-khabar. So hadhihi, despite it being an ismul ishara, despite it being a demonstrative pronoun, such as hadha for something which is male, and hadhihi for something which is female, that can be the first part in al-jumlatul ismiyya. So if we say, for example, hadha qalamun, the hadha part, that is al-mubtada'u, and qalamun, that is al-khabaru, the information, the two parts of al-jumlatul ismiyya. And refer back to the earlier videos if you're not sure about how al-jumlatul ismiyya is formed, or its difference, the difference between it and al-jumlatul fi'liyya. So qala an-nasiku, an-nasiku said, hadhihi anzatun, this is a goat, wa laysat kalban, and it is not. So we know that laysa negates the ism that follows it. So laysat, and note that laysat is mu'annath, it's female. And the reason why it's female is because an-nasiku is referring back to anzatun, the goat, and the goat is female. So he's negating the goat being what? Being kalban, a dog. So kalban is mansubun, as we know, because laysat renders the khabaru laysa mansubun. So this sentence, in effect, walaysat kalban, it could be formed in a different way or understood in a different way, and that is laysat al-anzatu kalban. Laysat, actually that would be laysatil anzatu kalban. Why? Because laysat, as we know, is a fi'lun, a verb. Then we have, even though the grammarians have termed it ismu laysa, the name that follows it, it's still in effect the doer. So the doer is always marfu'un. So al-anzatu, the goat, is not kalban, a dog. So in effect, kalban here is a maf'ulun bihi, but in terms of Arabic grammar, it's khabaru laysa, the information of laysa. And as we know, as we mentioned previously, that kalban here, because it's khabaru laysa, would therefore be mansubun. So when he said qala nasiku hadi anzatun wa laysat kalban, in effect he's omitted al-anzatu here because it's already mentioned. So he's gone straight to kalban wa laysat kalban, negating the fact that it is al-anzatu, the goat, and that's why kalban here is mansubun. We've omitted al-anzatu, because it could have said walaysat, and then we have al-anzatu here, kalban. Inshallah ta'ala, that's clear. And that's very common to say directly to the object, you are not something. For example, if I said, addressing hadi al-qalamu, this pen, and I said lasta baytan, you are not a house. Or I said lasta qursiyan, you are not a chair, and so on and so forth. Lasta hatifan, you are not a telephone, and we could carry on doing that, and that's fine, and that's very common. So we're negating the object directly, and therefore the object becomes mansubun. So that's the meaning of this particular sentence. قال الناسك هذه أنزة وليست كلبا. So the point to note is that هذه أنزة, this begins with the جملة الفعلية, فعل and then the فاعل. Then we have هذه أنزة, which is a جملة الاسمية, and then we have ليست كلبا. ليست كلبا, we're negating the anzatun being a dog. So after that, what was the next sentence that he said?